Hello everyone, and welcome to part 3, the final part of my Season 1 relic review with the Soul Merchant. In this last part I'm going to be covering the accessories that you have access to. This is the largest category as there are 3 universal accessories you have access to, as well as 1 for each class. You can see, so there's 1 Defender, Champion, Vanguard, Marksman, Arcanist, and Sage. If you've seen the previous 2 parts, then you know that some of these are going to stand out and be pretty good, while some others may be kind of situational and some not so hot. At the end, I will also cover the Consumables tab here. There's not a lot in there, not a lot we need to really cover, so let's just jump into the relics. Kicking it off, we have the Soul Spire ring. This is a pretty cool one because it grants the Hurricane skill. This is going to be in 1 AP spell, and these are always fairly useful, and it does some decent damage, and it can hit multiple times if the target doesn't move too far. The Spire effect is passively gain the benefits of Balor's Dark Radiance. That's plus 20% Vitality and plus 2 AP. Balor's Dark Radiance is the buff the Fomorians receive when you're doing a fight around one of their spires. During those spire fights, which are generally the toughest of the fights that you'll have to do in mission to mission, you will get a decent buff here. The 20% vitality is alright. Generally, at this stage of the game, you should usually have a pretty good handle on things, so you're avoiding vitality damage most of the time, but the plus 2 AP is definitely useful. A lot of classes can benefit from plus 2 AP. Next one is regain 8 HP for each kill, so you're definitely going to want this on one of your main damage classes, something that's going to be getting kills with some frequency to at least get some of this HP back. Plus 2 injury tokens, which is kind of whatever. Again, you're not really taking a whole lot of vitality damage at this point, so you're not usually getting injured. But there's a downside where you lose 3 HP at the end of each turn. This isn't a huge amount for most classes, especially if you're putting it on a class that is getting kills, at least with some frequency. So, I mean, an Arcanist, even a Marksman, if you've stacked up on the seasonal relic build that I've shown off before, a Vanguard or a Champion would have no problem with this. It's not bad, for sure. The biggest downside to this is just usually there's other items that are just going to generally be better for each class. This one's very sort of general and broad, so it can work for a lot of different classes, which is a strength, but it's also a weakness because there will be other items that you can encounter that just synergize better with a specific character or class because their abilities are more tailored to it. For example, you can see here on Mordred, for example, melee attacks against the hero cost plus 1 AP, and dodge the first incoming attack. Mordred is my defender, my tank, and I use this kind of item on whoever I'm using as a defender pretty frequently. So extra attacks against your tank, especially if they can taunt, it just reduces incoming attacks. This is going to be more useful in my opinion than these effects here on the Soul Spire ring. The second item is the Spire Shard. It's pretty straightforward, plus 25% to obtain Spire Shards. This is pretty good. It helps you get Spire Shards faster, level up your Spire abilities more quickly, and just help scale up the rest of the seasonal relics you're going to get, so this is a solid choice. Additionally, it provides immunity to stun and knockdown, so it's great CC protection, and this can be useful on pretty much anyone. If you have a certain character you've been running that you've noticed has been struggling a bit more because they're getting stunned or knocked down more frequently than others, this is a great item you can put on them. And then -2 turn duration for incoming bleed and poison effects. This one's alright. Again, I've never really struggled a whole lot with these status effects, but this does essentially reduce it down to extremely negligible if this is something you've noticed that is annoying for you. Again, kind of like the other one, doesn't do anything super amazing, it's just a very good general use defensive item, and it does a good job of enabling you to upscale your other seasonal relics quicker. So it's pretty good, and definitely something you can slot in. For example, my Morgoth, this would be something I would take on her in my actual not edited save. I believe this is the item I actually have on her, because you can see that the item she is currently running is just some random blue, so this slotted in perfectly for her. The third generic item is the Soul Drinker's Eye. For the Spire ability, soul fragments picked up by the hero grant each ally +1 AP. So this is useful when your hero picks up a soul fragment. They lose their AP, but it grants everyone else +1, so it's a bit of a team buff. Again, this is something I can see being useful for a hero that can pick up multiple fragments per turn, and the sort of best fit for that is a Sage. They have Death Wish, which lets them get +1 AP anytime anything dies, and this has no limit to it. So with your Sage, you go pick up a fragment, start killing stuff, and then your Sage gets more AP back, and they go pick up another fragment and grant another AP to the rest of your party. In most cases, it's just going to be the extra +1 per turn, which can still make a difference, but I have found I can pick up 2, sometimes even 3 fragments with a Sage on one turn, and an extra 2 AP is great. 3, that's amazing. So I think for this Spire ability, Sages may be the best fit for this, or Merlin specifically, just because currently his illusions can pick up soul fragments, and that does not drain his AP, so Merlin's probably the best choice for that, but then it sort of gets into the problem of, as an Arcanist, there's definitely some stronger combat to items you could probably give him. The rest of this is just a lot of sort of utility stuff. Heroes gain +1 AP during the first encounter after a rest, so if you do a rest, the next fight you go into, an extra AP, which is strong. Extra AP effects are always strong. You just have to make sure you rest before a big fight. Teleport 2 tiles away from the attacking unit when taking a melee hit, just some survivability. Generally not going to be an issue on your heavy armor users, so this, as I've kind of mentioned before, definitely leans more towards medium armor users like a Sage, or light armor like Merlin. Gain +1 AP during the first encounter after a rest. This effect is specific to them, so they would basically get 2, while everyone else gets 1. And then 27% physical debuff resist. That's a good chunk of physical debuff resistance, so solid defensiveness right there. Getting into the class-specific accessories, though, we have an Oath Stone. So this is for defenders. Deal X damage to adjacent enemies on the start of their turn. This can actually scale up pretty high, you know, like 50 plus. That's not a bad amount of damage at all to just be passively dealing to all adjacent enemies from your defender. Defender damage, as I've talked about a number of times, isn't great, but being able to deal, 50 or more damage to all adjacent enemies for free, that's really good, and definitely buffs up their damage capability. Additionally, it has Reflect 10 damage to melee attackers. 10 isn't a whole lot, especially when you're going against Fomorians that have, like 800, 900 health. But for smaller targets, this is fairly significant. When hit, always turn towards the attacking unit. This is an amazing ability. You always want to have at least one item with this effect, because it then will make it so all standard attacks will be blocked by your defender, which is their strongest damage mitigation ability, and plus 5% block. So it even has some block into it. So it has good offensive utility and strong defensive utility, like the best you can be asking for. Other than just increasing this block up to like 10%, this is really, really solid and all you could really ask for on the defensive end. And then regain 8 HP at the start of each encounter. This is okay. Defenders have a huge amount of HP, so 8 isn't a whole lot, but all of these other abilities are amazing. This is an incredible Oath Stone that fits well on any defender. The only time you wouldn't really want this is if you just really want a super powerful defensive Oath Stone. There are a couple that are a little stronger than this defensively, like having more block chance, for example. But that's really about it. Honestly, I think this is worth taking even over that, because defensively speaking, it's not that much weaker, and it provides just great offensive utility as well. For champions, we have the Skull of the Giant Slayer trophy. This is a decent item. I think there are maybe some better options, but this one is definitely solid for sure if you're just not running into anything that really sticks out to you for your trophies picks on your champion. The Spire ability is enemies lose X% of their vitality whenever the hero picks up a soul fragment. This can get some decent percentage on it too, so it basically is a way to guarantee that even when you're not doing damage with your champion, you're still doing some damage. Sometimes enemies are out of reach, and instead of just passing your turn, you'd maybe rather just pick up the soul fragment, do some damage to them, and maybe it'll weaken them enough for your range to take care of them, or just easily finish them off on the next turn. It's not an amazing ability, but I think it is a solid one. The next one is a Killing Spree ability. After getting 7 kills, the effect triggers for a champion, especially if you're running them as your main damage dealer. This is really easy to get. The next basic attack gains 20% weapon damage and grants stun. So this gives it really good utility for your next attack and just makes it a bit of a harder hitting bomb to drop on them. 20% can be a lot, especially if you've got some rage stacks going. So this can definitely help get a kill on like an elite that may have like 2,000 health or something. I don't think this is amazing per se, as 7 kills is a good amount, and by that point you're generally having enough rage stacks to not really be struggling damage-wise. And it's only the next attack, but obviously if it was every attack that would be absurdly broken, so it's okay. Next one, ignore 100% of the attack unit block values. This is very useful, especially against Fomorians. There's a lot of those shield breakers. They have that 30% block value, so now you don't have to flank around them, so it does save you some AP on movement. Plus 8 damage for area attacks. This is good for buffing your cleaves and your Earthshaker, and then gain plus 2 movement AP on each kill with a melee skill. And this does specify melee, so Earthshaker won't cut it for this. And getting movement AP on kills is useful. Getting more of that mobility is a strong buff for champions. Overall, there's some good abilities on here, some classic stuff I like to see on my prime choices for a trophy. There's just some other abilities overall that are just kind of mid, I think. It's a good pick, but you may come across some non-seasonal trophies that may be more to your liking. The next item is for Vanguards, the Netherwalker's Cape. This one has a very potentially powerful effect. Backstabs have X% chance to instantly kill units with less than 50% physical debuff resist. Now, I didn't even reach maximum Spire Shards, and this was already over 50%. So you can get better odds than a coin flip to instantly kill a unit that has 49% or less physical debuff resist. Now, there are a decent amount of tougher enemies that have more than this, so you're not going to be just one-shotting elites, for example, or some of the Fomorians. But the fact that you can one-shot a Taint Hog or something, for example, that has somewhere between 700 and 800 health, I think. Can't remember exactly off the top of my head. That's crazy. Just boom, gone, done. That's very strong, for sure. Additionally, traps ignore armor. So if you're using traps, this is pretty good for that, I suppose. Though no one's really using traps. Backstabs ignore 12 armor. That's decent. Vanguards do a lot of damage anyways, where armor isn't a huge obstacle for them, but this is useful. Just a flat plus 8 weapon damage bonus and 10 armor piercing, so just more armor bypass mechanics. So really making sure you're getting those hits in, I guess, for some really high damage. This is a solid provision. This is definitely one I would take on a lot of my Vanguards unless they had some really specific item I was using for some kind of playstyle. For example, the Balin that I've currently been running is stacking 2 of these effects to reduce movement cost by 33%, so he just zooms all over the battlefield. This one, honestly, would probably be stronger, but the other one is just funnier to me. The Marksman one, also very good. For their lucky charm, we have the Levitating Spirit Stone. Damage over time effects deal plus 0 damage. Damage over time effects deal plus X damage. This is a flat damage boost rather than percentage. It gets fairly decent. They can do moderate damage over time, but this isn't really the main reason why you're picking it. The main reason why you're taking it is for the Blood Magic ability. Upon dealing 200 damage, basic attacks do 25% more damage and 15% bleeding. Again, the bleeding is decent and it combos with the Spire effect very well, but that 25% damage on basic attacks is huge, especially, as we all know, Marksman struggling with damage before this patch. And that may seem counterintuitive to why would you have them do 200 damage then? That's so much, they'll never hit that. If you build them right, I've done the build, you can hit that in almost one attack. I've done like 190 in one hit, so getting 200 and that's basically 2 hits. I'm pretty sure I've done over 200 in one hit before, though, but that required a little bit of setup. So hitting this Blood Magic is not difficult. And then it's just the 25% damage buff to basic attacks for the rest of the encounter. That's great. -1 cooldown to Poison Arrow, so you can use it every single turn, which is just a stronger basic attack, though with the plus 25% damage from the blood magic thing, they're much more similar, but it is cheaper AP-wise, so there's that to consider. Plus 12 damage for Poison Bomb. This is a good buff to Poison Bomb that it needed. Honestly, I still don't think it's strong enough to warrant using this rather than just individually shooting your targets, but it's nice. And then dodge the first incoming opportunity attack each turn. Useful just survivability for your marksman. This Lucky Charm is great. The blood magic ability alone is absolutely amazing, and the Poison Arrow cooldown also very solid. This is a must-have if you're running marksman. For Arcanist, we have Ashes of the Blind Hag, another pretty solid item. X% chance on skill use to gain 1 AP. Arcanists are going to be throwing out a lot of skills per round, lots of hexes, so you're basically going to be rolling the dice on this a lot and refunding some of that AP for things like slowing hex. It's a full refund. So the ability to just extend your turns to get even more spells out in a single round, the odds of that go up a surprising amount with this item. It's very solid. This synergizes into that spell spam playstyle that they have very, very well. The item has a killing spree ability when the hero gets 1 kill, which is not hard to do for any of the Arcanists. They get 10% cumulative hex intensity for the rest of the encounter. So just stronger hexes, which you're going to be putting out even more of because of the Spire ability. This just combos very well. -1 cooldown for hex skills, -1 cooldown for slowing hex. So more of that spell spam. This is a great item for synergizing with that, and gain 2 AP for the first turn of each encounter. This is just the spell spam enabler. This is definitely a pick you're going to want to take to enable that spell spam, make it that much stronger. The only time you're not taking this is if you're using Merlin or Ector and you manage to pick up one of their burn build items, the Immolated One's Lament, for example, in this case. This is pretty much the only time you would not be taking this Ashes of the Blind Hag, I think. I can't really think of any other Arcanist relic artifact off the top of my head that enables them more than this item would. Finally, for sages, we have the Silver Scrolls of Nuada. This is a fairly strong support item. Definitely not something you're going to want to take on Morgos. This is more for the standard-ish sages. The Spire ability is when you pick up a soul fragment, the hero restores X amount of AP to allies. So there's not a lot of healing abilities in this game. They're very rare, so having a heal ability in the form of picking up soul fragments is a very strong support capability. It's very underrated just due to how rare this type of ability is in the game. It has a martyr effect. I'm not really a huge fan of these. You need to take 5 hits. My sages don't get hit very often. I don't want them getting hit very often. And the abilities just become invincible for a turn, so it's basically kind of just a failsafe ability. If your sage for some reason getting the shit kicked out of them, they get a get out of jail free card. So that's nice, but I feel like this just could have been something else to help them do what they do more, rather than something to try and help protect them. That's just personal taste, maybe. They do get this next ability, which is useful to help protect them defensively. Melee attacks against them cost 1 extra AP, so they're going to be having less attacks thrown at them. And then last 5 armor is unbreakable, so there's just a lot of defensiveness on this, which is good. You want to keep your sage safe, but I don't know. Me personally, that's never really been much of a problem, so this just kind of feels like they're buffing a part of the class that didn't really need to be buffed. The last ability I kind of skipped over, -1 cooldown for Bless. That's great. Being able to throw Bless out more often, it's one of their strongest abilities. That's super strong. This manuscript, definitely something that can be used on pretty much all the sages except for Morgos, at least if you want to get the full use out of it. Overall, just a very solid option. Before going into my final thoughts on the accessories, I just wanted to cover the consumables really quickly. There's just 4 tomes here: Tome of Experience, Tome of Proficiency, Tome of Resurrection, and Tome of Forgiveness. Half a level of XP, an extra skill point, a resurrection token, and removing the negative loyalty modifiers from events on a single hero. There's only 1 of each. It's 5 souls for these 3, and then 20 for the resurrection tome. These 2 on the ends you should avoid completely. You really I highly doubt you'll need that many of these. You get a good amount of these just playing the game, and you don't need the experience. You'll hit max level, no problem. You don't need to worry about it. The Tome of Proficiency, I think, is sort of maybe worth it if you just so happen to be one skill point short of just having a super crucial talent or skill that you just think would really help finish off your build. It's only 5 souls. I don't think it's a big deal. The Tome of Resurrection, though, is 20. That's a lot. That's almost a gear piece, and I think the gear should be the focus. Unless you're playing on roguelite mode, odds are you're just going to reload your save before your important hero died, so you're not really going to need this. On roguelite mode, though, I can see how this can be useful. One of your important heroes dies in the endgame. At least now you have this to fall back on to maybe help save you and prevent you from having that significant loss. Like I said, 2 of these avoid completely. One of them pretty much just for roguelite, and one of them if you really, really think you need that one skill. As for my opinions on the accessories as a whole, I think this category, the devs did the best job on making all of them feel useful. Some of them definitely not as much, but the vast majority I think are really strong, really impactful, especially the class ones. No real complaints, honestly, on any of them. They're very, very good, and I think a lot of these stand to improve pretty much any build, while most of them definitely won't hurt. There's a lot of competition for your soul fragments in this category, so definitely focus on whatever heroes are your primary ones you're bringing to all your missions, and try and snatch up the gear for that first, because you will run out of soul fragments really quickly. And with all that said, that wraps up my final review for the Season 1 relics, all that the Soul Merchant has to offer. I hope these reviews were helpful and useful to any players out there that were maybe struggling with deciding what to pick up. I think the devs did a great job in designing these relics overall, and I'm excited to see what's in store for Season 2, and I'll be sure to review those as well for anyone that may have trouble shopping for that season as well. As always, thanks for watching.